last video, we shared how $400,000 was enough to retire on. And what was the most common question we got asked?
Well, can you really do it? I mean, that's the biggest question.
What do we really spend?
Yeah. I mean, and really, ultimately, what are we spending? Of course, our expenses are our expenses, but maybe it gives you a guideline that you can look at your expenses and go, oh, I could do without this or without that, whatever. I mean, it's just an example of what we did.
So today we thought we'd just sit down and have a conversation about, the real life expenses. So today we're going to talk about our real monthly expenses. Mm-hmm. We're not going to talk about estimates or averages. We're just going to give you our monthly expenses and show you how easy it is to retire on a smaller amount than most people think, because there are wives' tales out there that everyone should have $1 million. I just read an online study that said the average people think they need to have $1.25 million before they can retire. And it also said that 1 out of 4 people in the world, in the United States, don't believe they have enough to retire. So we're trying to break this myth. And we're trying to help you see that if you have a little bit of creativity and flexibility.
This is, it's really about your choices and about your mindset and about choosing what is more important to you. Now, will this work for everybody? No. But we took examples from a number of people and applied it to our situation and came up with a recipe that worked for us. And our goal is to help others. We're so grateful that you are subscribing or that maybe you're watching us for the first time. But we determined that if we give away our information and do our best to help others, that it's just that pay forward mentality. And maybe there's somewhere in our recipe and combined with other people's ideas that would help you, retire earlier than you thought possible, if at all possible. Some people feel they're never going to be able to retire and are going to continue to work well into their quote-unquote retirement years. And based on these traditional formulas, not that they're bad.
Right.
I mean, these are financial experts, and they're going to tell you that if you do the standard 401k, if you have one at your work, and you do conservative investments, and you,
that's the lie we bought into for 20 plus years of our working life. And guess what? Our money grew very, very small. And when we decided that we weren't going to pay someone else to manage our accounts and we started taking control of it ourselves, that's when the magic kind of happened.
Yeah.
And this, we've had lots of comments, and we don't want you to think that we just ignored all of our family responsibilities. If you know anything about our lives, which why would you? We're new to this. So, we both worked our whole lives. Started when we were very young, up until just last year a couple years ago when Tyke retired, and last year when I retired. But my father passed away in 2017, and we brought my mother, who had Parkinson's, into our home, and we were her primary caregivers until she passed away a couple years ago. So we totally understand how some of you can't just geo-arbitrage to another country because you have family responsibilities. But there are ways that you can do things to help speed up your retirement goals. And that's kind of what we want to share with you. And some of those ways are, you have to be flexible. You have to be open to new ideas. You have to have an open mindset, because if you don't think about and tell yourself, my goal is to retire by such and such age, whether it's a year earlier than you thought you would or 10 years earlier than society tells us we should, you have to get that in your head, because then it opens possibilities. So we 5 years ago, we weren't thinking about living in Southeast Asia and
Yeah.
living super cheap in another country. We
didn't know there were options, honestly.
didn't know, really.
We just thought you go to work every day, you collect the paycheck, you have the new home or the newer home,
Yep.
and the latest car and all these expenses, and that was just part of what you did. And I'm just saying, again, we're not financial experts.
Right.
But this is what really happened to us.
Yeah.
And this isn't a textbook formula that says X equals Y times 2 gets you this perfect number. We're just saying that we made new choices to kind of chase things that we never thought were chaseable. Living overseas, part-time at least, saving that kind of money there.
And we do go to the United States a couple times a year to see family. We make sure we're there for special events, grandkids' birthdays, graduations. We time it so that we can get as much in when we come to the...
So here's some helps. So retiring early isn't about a magic number. It's not about a magic date on the calendar for your age, for your financials.
Yeah, just because we said we did it with $400,000 in the bank doesn't mean that's your number.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, this is all about what we did, but hopefully this information helps. But really for us and for a lot of people that we've met in the last 2 years that are doing similar living a similar lifestyle as we are, it's about your expenses. It's about your flexibility. And there's things that you have to do. If you're not flexible and you want to be, there's things you probably need to do to make yourself more flexible. And really, it's about mindset. I mean,
It really is.
yeah, a lot of people couldn't get their head around what we were doing initially. And now they're like, oh, okay, I see how you do that and what you're doing.
It's pretty crazy when you start thinking about it. Like we said, we weren't even thinking about it a couple years ago. And then we just, you get so caught up in work and you're so stressed out about work that there's not a lot of time for time and headspace and emotional real estate for anything else. So we just sat down and said, how are we going to create a life that is one that we're going to enjoy? And how can we set an example for our friends and our children and our grandchildren that will help them not stay stuck in this 40-hour work week grind that as Americans we seem to feel like is a necessity when it's really not. So we're gonna screen share we're gonna show you our budget and we're gonna talk through that. Okay, here is our budget for when we are living in Southeast Asia. This is our retirement budget. This is what we spend. We'll just go through the categories. So for housing, we can spend anywhere from $450 for a month for 28, 30 days, whatever the month is, up to $1,500. That is our budget. And we've told you we did spend $450 this year, 2026, for a full month in Thailand. And when we go up to that $1,500, usually that is a hotel where we stay in a hotel that has a lounge and we can get free food all day long in the lounge. And these are with our IHG branded Chase credit card, and there's a link in the description. If you're going to be traveling in Southeast Asia, we highly recommend using our link to get your Chase IHG branded credit card because the IHG points in Southeast Asia are crazy good. It's unlike anything, and the hotel stays and just the hospitality you're gonna get in Southeast Asia is amazing. So you can stay in 4 and 5 star hotels, and like I said, have the lounge. So we like to spend around 10,000 points a night, which when you buy your IHG points on sale, you get them for 0.5 cents. So for a 10,000 point night hotel, it runs that's $50. So you're going to buy your points and you're going to spend $50. And you do earn points. So sometimes we stay for absolutely nothing because we've earned 10,000 points and we can just, book that as a hotel room. But that's $50 all in. You don't pay, when you book with points, you don't pay the fees that you would pay as a cash pay. So, and with IHG, you get every 4th night free. So you always want to book in 4-night increments. But we have videos that are specific about how to use the IHG credit card. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but that is our housing budget, anywhere from $450 to $1,500. We are going to try trusted house sitters overseas. So eventually we could have a 0 housing budget with trusted house sitters. The next category is groceries. It's hard to spend $350 in Southeast Asia on food. And groceries, that means just food. We'll go to the grocery store and get snacks and things like that, and maybe breakfast food, but usually we eat out because it's cheaper to eat somebody's, the local food that someone else has prepared than to buy American food at the grocery store and go back to your condo or hotel and make it. And also when we stay at the hotels that have the lounge, our grocery budget is like maybe $20 a month because we're eating all of our meals in the lounge for free. So the next one is car, taxi, things like that. We have never rented a car overseas. We do take a lot of, they're called grabs over there. So usually we don't spend very much. If we're staying in a certain place, we do a lot of walking, and we maybe we'll spend $20 on a MetroCard or Rabbit Card in Bangkok. You can get around on the subway and the tram. So we put 50 to 75. That's probably a pretty high estimate, but sometimes you take a car from the airport to someplace that's going to cost $20. If you want to go do a touristy thing, you're going to have to probably take a taxi. So 50 to 75 a month is our travel budget for car, taxi type service. Maintenance, I put this on there because, when you're living in the States and have a home and a car, and you've got to pay insurance, you've got to pay HOA fees, you've got to fix the furnace if it breaks, you've got to maybe pay somebody to mow your lawn, you've got to pay a housekeeper, all that stuff you pay zero. We get housekeeping for free when we stay in hotels. They will come and clean our room at least once a day. A lot of times they'll come twice a day and do turn down service. So anyway, our maintenance fees are absolutely zero. The next category is fitness. So in the States, we maybe paid for a gym membership or had some fancy gym equipment. So at some points we were paying $100 a month for gym memberships, and we don't have to pay that at all in Southeast Asia because everywhere we go, we make sure they have a nice gym. A swimming pool is a must for me. I love swimming. So we get all of that included. That is included in our condo for $450 a month. We get the pool, we get the gym, we get all the facilities that we can use 24/7. It's also included when you stay in a hotel, of course. You just have to make sure you check and see that they have that, but most of them do. The next category is health insurance. We pay $345 a month for health insurance for Southeast Asia, and I have a video about going to the doctor in Southeast Asia. It was an awesome experience, and it cost me $99 to go. It was 40 minutes from the very start. I did not have an appointment. It was walk-in. 40 minutes from start to finish, and I left with all of my prescriptions in my hand. And the total cost was $99, and my Safety Wing insurance reimbursed me at 100%. So that is an awesome video you can watch if you're interested in that. The next category we have is internet, subscriptions. We do our YouTube while we're traveling, and we have a VPN on our computer, so we get to still keep up on local news in the States and watch programs from the States. So we don't pay for internet because that's included in all of our stays. So we've never paid for any internet. But we do have some YouTube subscriptions that help us, like Adobe and things like that. So that is that. And then entertainment. I threw this in there because, you know, we do like to do some touristy things. We did go to we've been out to several movies. And let me tell you, it's nothing like the States. They have bed theaters that you can lay down in a bed and watch the movie, and nice movie theaters. You can watch first run movies just like you would in the States, except for it's way cheaper. Tyke and I went to a movie together. We got popcorn and drinks, and it was $6 for both of us, including the drinks, $6 US. So it's just insane how cheap you can do things. And I forgot to add in our phone plan. We use Tello, and so they have a plan as cheap as $5 a month. I might not recommend that unless it's like one of the kiddos that doesn't talk or do a lot of texting, but you can get one of their mid-range plans for about $10 to $12 a month that will do everything you want it to do, or you can get the $25 a month plan that is unlimited everything. But really, when you're in Southeast Asia, you don't need unlimited everything because you're using WhatsApp unless you're on the Wi-Fi. Then you can use your phone plan. So you really don't need a big phone plan when you're in Southeast Asia, because you're able to do all of if you have Tello, you can make unlimited calls on the Wi-Fi, and it doesn't suck up your phone plan time. So that is our budget. So let's start with the math, because, you know, if you haven't heard of the 4% rule, that's a pretty common rule for retirement. So we have $400,000 in our accounts. If we took 4% out every year, because you're going to average, most investments average 8 to 10%. Ours aren't average, but that's for another video. So if we take out 4%, our money's never going to disappear, right? So you're getting 8 to 10% on your money. You take out 4% every year to live on. It's never going to go down. It's always going to gain. Every year you're going to get a little bit more money. And your 4% is going to be a little higher every year. So cost of living adjustment. So for us, that's $16,000. Yeah. We're blessed because Tyke was able to take his Social Security early at 63. He's now 65. But he started taking his Social Security early. So we have that money as well.
That 4% is about $16,000 a year. And for some people, they're like, you know, that's not even going to pay rent, or so to speak, or my mortgage, or whatever it is you have.
So that's where geo arbitrage comes in.
And that's where so for geo arbitrage, what that means is you travel in countries where the exchange rate for your American dollars is a dramatic advantage.
Yeah.
So
$16,000 a year in Vietnam, for example, is plenty of money.
Oh yeah.
To live on.
Yeah, and we're not talking about living in a bamboo shack. We're talking about luxury hotels, very nice Airbnbs, all the services of any modern American city, and it's shockingly affordable.
It's pretty crazy. And so when we were looking at our budget, we went through and we decided, okay, you know, you've seen our budget, you saw what we had, the house payment, the car payment, the insurance, the upkeep, the HOA fees, and I always had this looming fear that the furnace was going to go out, or the air conditioner was going to go out, or something major in the house was going to need to be replaced. Oh. And where were we going to come up with that money? When you're living paycheck to paycheck in the US, you know, you don't want to touch your 401k. You can't if you're my age, because you don't want to pay the penalties. So it's really important to not have that stress hanging over your head.
For us, it was crucial. And I mean, we were doing pretty well, but we had all the trappings of what goes with doing well too, right? We had the new truck and the toys and things, but the problem was we had no time.
We had no time. We had no energy. We had no... Yeah. So what we did was we looked at all of obviously we sold our house, but before we did that, we had to plan things. Like, we used to have Sprint T-Mobile for our cell phone. We were paying about $250 a month
Yeah.
for 2 phones.
Yeah.
And so we started switching things out. We switched to Tello. We made sure our phones were paid off, which is important. You have to do that. And we switched to Tello, which has a plan as cheap as, I think it's $8 a month. So huge difference from $16 a month for 2 phones, $250 a month. Then we looked through all of our video subscriptions, Netflix, Apple, Amazon, all of them. And we decided, okay, which one do we really want to watch? And this part's tricky because I know a lot of you don't want to give that up. And the nice thing about those subscriptions is you can take them with you to other countries. We have a VPN on our computer, and we can log into US television and watch them. So I'm not saying that you have to get rid of all of your subscriptions. We did. And the nice thing about canceling them is a lot of times they come back with a really cheap offer. So we're like, okay, we'll take that $1.99 a month for 6 months.
Well, keep in mind too, and this is just us, maybe television is that important to you, and good for you if it isn't, because it is kind of brain dead, mind numbing stuff. But again, if you have a few shows you want to watch or sports or whatever, again, like Tina just said, you can take that with you, because I will tell you, fair warning, television isn't the greatest in some of those countries. You're not going to find your favorite channels most of the time. So having that for us was a nice connection to home. We could also watch local news, local programming that came up during the year that we would normally watch. Yeah. So it was nice to have that connection and feel like you're, still home. But again,
the little things, things that you need to do is, and we've created a budget sheet for you, and we're going to offer this for free. So we'll put it in the video description as a download for you. And this is kind of what we did when we were first trying to see. So you go through all of your expenses and you decide, what can we get rid of? Yeah. The nice thing about traveling and not having a home and a car is there's no maintenance. There's no stress about worrying about it. If something happens when we're in a hotel or an Airbnb, we call the front desk. We don't worry about it, and nothing's happened. Yeah. We haven't had anything happen so far, so hopefully that won't change. But no. But you need to look through your expenses, and you need to decide what is your number, and just really wrap your head around, how can I do it different? And maybe leaving the country isn't something that you want to do, but do you have to live where you're living? Maybe there's a cheaper place in the United States that you could live. Maybe there's some side hustles that you could do to make up a little bit of income so that you could quit your job a little earlier, retire a little earlier. There's all kinds of things, and we can put we'll put a little note up in the, we'll come up with a bunch of side hustles, and we'll put a picture. There's a lot
of income streams you can create for yourself. Ideally is passive, meaning that you do it once and it sells itself. Right. Set it and forget it kind of mindset. But again, maybe that isn't something you want to do. You don't want to hassle with that. It's very common that people want to travel. It's one of the most common things you hear when people say they're going to retire. Oh, I want to travel. I want to go here, or I want to go there. And I can tell you, I never thought about going to Southeast Asia. That wasn't a thing on my radar. I didn't have any desire to go there. It is, and maybe you don't want to be in a big city, but I can tell you there's country locations, countryside, out of the big city locations you can go to in those areas that are even more affordable. Yeah,
and beautiful.
And beautiful and safe. And
yes, very safe.
Yeah, we had, in fact, to be transparent, I felt safer there than I feel in most of the parts of the United States that I travel in. That I've traveled in. So it's really
we've been to New York City, so that's saying a lot.
yeah, and we're not digging on New York. I New York's a wonderful place, and have relatives that live there. And the last time we were there, we felt it was pretty comfortable. But my point is, you think about a city as big as New York. We went to cities that were bigger in Asia, and I didn't have any reservations.
So what would you say as kind of a wrap up? What we did is we decided to sell everything. The brand new house we had just built, we lived in for 2 years, 2 years barely.
Yeah.
And we sold that. And we thought it was going to be our forever home. We built a single level. We thought, okay, we can retire here. We can go through whatever health conditions we have here. And it was a beautiful home. But we sold it because we chose this slow travel lifestyle. So we chose to sell every single thing and go to Southeast Asia. So we do what we call slow travel. It saves you money because you're not flying as much, you're not moving around as much. You can get better prices on your long-term stays, like an Airbnb. If you put 28 to 30 days, you get a better price than you do for a week. But
we've shared that example before. Last year we stayed at a beachside town
in
Thailand for an entire month at a really nice what would you call it, apartment complex?
Condo.
Mm-hmm. It had a pool, a gym, lazy river, laundry facilities, kitchen.
Walking distance to everything.
Walking distance to everything in town, including the beach. And I mean 5 minutes walking. Yeah. And it was
$542
for 30 days.
Yeah. For 30 days.
Yep.
And we've booked it again for 2026, and it was only $450. That's just crazy. Yeah. But you guys were serious. This is what you can do if you just change your mindset a little bit and just think differently. So we book on sites like Airbnb. There's also a site called Agoda that is popular in Southeast Asia to get flights or hotels or Airbnbs. Also, the app that we use when we're in the United States called Trusted House Sitters for free accommodations.
The
reason
domestic,
we use it in the United States is because it's so expensive. An Airbnb in the U.S. would be, I don't know, $3,000 a month. Yeah. So we use Trusted House Sitters so we can stay for free, and we find spots that are close to family, and we spend our time visiting with family and doing things that we want to do when we're in the United States. But they also have, it's global. So we're wanting to stay with Trusted House Sitters in maybe Italy or something like that. So there's so many options. You just have to create this open mindset so that as things come to you, and they will, now that you start thinking about it, you'll start noticing all these different things. Like, I'd never heard of the word geo arbitrage. Like, use your money that you make in the U.S. to spend in a country where it's worth 5 times that. You land on a plane in Vietnam and you get $100 out of the ATM machine and you have $1 million Vietnamese dollars. You are a millionaire in Vietnam. It's so crazy.
Yeah. And again, I wouldn't say that you're sacrificing, other than distance. I'll be transparent, you're a long ways from home.
You're a long ways from home. But there's amazing things called FaceTime and Zoom, and we try to have regularly scheduled Zoom meetings with our kids and grandkids, and
they're busy with their lives too at this point in their life and our life. They're busy. They're teenagers and young adults, and they're busy too.
The grandkids, not the kids. We wouldn't leave our teenagers.
Not that I could have them at my age, but the point being is that start opening yourself up to options. The internet is the great equalizer. I was in the auto industry for years, and when the internet really took off in the mid-90s, one of the smallest automobile dealers in the United States became one of the biggest, and it was really just because of the internet. So my point is, you can open up that Google browser and you can start looking at, just ask questions. What if I wanted to retire on this much a month? What if I wanted to travel to Europe or Italy or whatever? And the days of spending 5-digit vacations, I mean, they're still there. But let me tell you, you can go and spend a lot of money on a vacation. But if you take advantage of the slow travel model, you can go for pennies.
And the geo arbitrage,
And the geo arbitrage. And I'm telling you, it's just not, you're not going to be alone. There are a lot of expats from all over the world, not just the United States. I mean, there's a lot of United States citizens running around those countries.
Yeah.
And we have a great story about running into some people in Thailand that lived 30 miles from our home. And we were both from the same valley and got to know them and become friends. It was so awesome. But that wasn't the only, those weren't the only people we met. There were a lot of people doing this on a regular basis. And they're all willing to share how they're doing it, what they're doing.
Yeah.
And, it's just an option. And that's what you want to keep yourself open to, is options.
Yep. But it's not for you if you're not going to be flexible, if you're not going to be adaptable, if you're not going to be open to new ideas. But if you're still watching this video,
I think I was going to say,
you are the right person.
You're trying to open your mind to go, what can I do? Because your financial advisor, your HR advisor at work, or whoever we always had access to financial advisors. They're going to tell you not to do this. They're going to say, you are crazy.
Oh yeah.
Do not do this. And here's the thing. I can always get another job. Tina's a registered nurse. She could get a job today.
Yeah.
If
I could get another job. It
we can
wouldn't
go
be the
back
end of the
to.
world. I don't want to.
We can go back to buying another home and doing the, and but right now, while we're healthy and agile and can get around, this works for us, and maybe it'll work for you.